Hello, you absolute legends. I thought this entire Dream cheating situation was well behind us, despite the overwhelming and conclusive evidence proving that he had illegally modified his game. Dream continued to deny everything, and it really did seem like this was going to be the case forever. For the most part, people had just accepted it and moved on, but just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. On the 30th of May, arguably the most famous Minecraft player on the planet finally confessed to cheating in Minecraft. Well, kind of. Dream did admit that the drop rates of important items had been artificially increased, but now claims that it was an accident. He simply didn't know that his game was modified, and he certainly didn't do it on purpose. This excuse was not taken well in the speedrunning community. No one took him seriously, and this was just seen as another lie in a long list of lies that had been woven since he was exposed last year. His paste bin was so obviously fake that I didn't even intend on making a video about it. I already covered the cheating scandal months ago, and my conclusion that Dream had modified his game in order to gain an unfair advantage hadn't changed. But I ended up getting so many comments requesting that I talk about it, I decided to quickly whip something up. Of course, even though the video was supposed to be short and straightforward, I still decided to research more about the topic, just to make sure I understood the technical side of what Dream was trying to claim. But what was interesting is that it was immediately obvious to me that no one had any idea what they were talking about. I saw hundreds of comments from people proclaiming things that just weren't true. Their arguments for not believing Dream's confession were based on a flawed and incorrect understanding of how Minecraft works. I realized that people weren't objecting to Dream's story because of verifiable facts, but rather because of their subjective opinion of his character. To many people, Dream is a manipulative liar, and everything he says is nothing but another fake story to fool his gullible fan base. People surely have legitimate grievances over Dream's behavior, but one thing is for certain: most people are dreadfully misinformed. If you want to cast doubt on Dream's story, that's completely fine, but it should be done with an educated mind, not an ignorant one. When I discovered just how much blatantly false information was being circulated, I knew this story was much more complex than it seems. I decided to go deep, very deep, and uncover the true story behind everything. Dream has been accused of a lot of things, but one thing you can never say is that he is shy about answering the tough questions. As part of my investigation, Dream gave me access to everything. The developer that Dream claims created the mod that altered the drop rates, I know who they are, and I've spoken with them. The Harvard astrophysicist that lies at the center of 1,000 conspiracy theories, I know who they are, how Dream found them, I've read the emails they sent back and forth, I even know how much they were paid. I've read chat logs between Dream and the moderators immediately following his cheated streams. I've interviewed credible witnesses. I've had lengthy discussions with Minecraft speedrun moderators, and so much more. Your conclusion may not ultimately change, and it's not my job to convince you either way, but one thing is for sure: you do not know the full story, and things that you take for granted as being true are blatantly false. Forget every other video you've seen on this topic. I am the one person who knows more than anyone else on the planet. In this video, we will cover everything, and only then can you truly make an informed decision. We know, and always did know, that Dream's game was modified. The math just doesn't lie. But did he do it intentionally? Or was this entire scandal the result of an innocent mistake? I promise that before the end of this video, I will give you my own personal conclusion. I really hope you enjoy. Now, regardless of whether or not you think Dream cheated intentionally, there is one thing we can't deny. Dream is incredibly skilled at what he does. And if you want to be skilled at something, there is no better place to learn than Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers thousands of classes for pretty much anything you can think of. In my opinion, the most important thing you can learn is how to be more productive. So I recommend you take the course Productivity Masterclass by Ali Abdaal. It's a really entertaining and inspiring course, and you'll learn a ton of principles that will help you get more out of your day. Whether you are into animation, web development, or music, Skillshare has everything you need to reach the next level. And the first 1,000 legends who click the link in the description will get a free month trial. Click the link, get a free month. It's that simple. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty and start to correct the mountains of misinformation, we first need to establish what Dream is actually claiming. The May 30 pastebin was extremely long-winded, arguably unnecessarily so, but the information relevant to this video lay in a few paragraphs halfway through. According to Dream, sometime after the entire drama had died down, he discovered that he had actually been using a disallowed modification during his live streams. Ironically, despite being the perpetrator, he was the last person on the internet to find out. Dream explains that he and his team had always increased drop rates for their challenge videos, as this speeds up the content creation process. And that totally makes sense to me. Even when I make content for videos, I will use cheats to skip past sections of the game, or just to make things easier in general. Apparently, the developer that Dream had hired to create a mod to help with recording transferred the increased drop rates from the plugins they were using in their challenge videos. Dream doesn't state it very clearly, but he does say that he was unaware that those particular changes had been made. After some more technical mumbo-jumbo, the pastebin states that the increased drop rates were shortly removed thereafter when a better way to achieve the same result was discovered. Now, there is a lot of very important information that Dream doesn't include in this story that I will get to later, but right now, I want to debunk what is likely the biggest objection people seem to have with this story. And in my opinion, this issue stems from an ignorance of how the technical side of Minecraft works. The pastebin includes statements like, server-side and client-side are completely different, and as far as I was aware, nothing had been done client-side. And phrases like, server-side plugin were thrown around. 99.99% of people reading this pastebin would have absolutely no idea what that means, and in typical human fashion will simply ignore it. All the typical person really takes away from his explanation is two main points. 1. I regularly increase my drop rates. And 2. I didn't think my drop rates could have been increased. On the surface, this makes no sense at all. If you've already been increasing drop rates, it's so obvious that you might have accidentally done it again in your speedruns. To feign ignorance seems bizarre, and the only reasonable conclusion is that you're lying. The commentary community jumped on this point very heavily.
But even if you did believe that, to not notice it over numerous streams, and then after being called out, not even entertain the possibility that the drop rates were modded when you'd been using a mod that does literally exactly that is not realistic.
He goes on to say that the cheating aspect stems from a specific mod that him and his boys used to use back in the early days of their Minecraft YouTube challenge videos, which increased the rates of those extremely rare drops that we talked about before.
If he had mods that gave the same drop rates, he would have immediately known what happened once the original report came out. What would have happened, quote, wait, my speedrun had the exact same drop rates as the last mods I used, question mark? Oh, I made a mistake, let me clear it up, end quote.
Then once the 1.16 version of Minecraft came out, I guess Dream assumed that the plugin was not updated for 1.16 yet and thought it was disabled during his speedruns, even though it wasn't. The reason he was unable to check this is because he was looking for mods, which is client side, but in reality the alteration came from a plugin. And then by the time he tried to look into the plugin, it was a week after the stream and stuff changed on his computer, so it was no longer there because I guess the guy who was working on it ended up removing it or changing it or something like that.
To give his argument a fair shake, what he's saying is that he didn't think the mod that he had installed affected the speedrun. So he knew it was installed, but he had it installed for his other content. Because he doesn't just do speedrunning, he's just like a general.
I'm sorry, but if you understand a game as good as he does, you understand.
Absolutely. I think he's full of shit. But this is what he's saying.
Everything that was said in these clips was wrong, and in order to understand why, we have to know the difference between a plugin and a mod. A plugin is a modification that is installed on a Minecraft server. If you've watched any of Dream's content, you'll notice that he never makes content alone. His manhunt videos and his challenge videos are always done with a group of friends. In order for multiple people to play together in the same world, they all need to connect to the same server. Generally, a plugin does not require any software or files to be installed on your computer. All you need to do is connect to the server and you'll be running by the server's rules. A mod is a different type of modification that can either be installed on the server or on your computer. It can be placed in your Minecraft folder and will affect your game directly. This is called client-side, and when Dream makes the distinction between client-side and server-side, it's actually very important. So let's talk about drop rates and how they are managed. If you aren't connected to a server and are just playing a single-player game, everything is obviously managed client-side, including drop rates. But when you connect to a server, drop rates are then managed server-side. This means that if I want to change the drop rate of blaze rods on a multiplayer server, simply placing a mod in my Minecraft folder won't do anything. A client-side mod will not and cannot affect drop rates when connected to a server. And likewise, if you aren't connected to a server, you're not going to be affected by any plugins you may have been using. Given that Dream always records videos on a multiplayer server, he has not, nor could he ever, use a client-side mod to change his drop rates. It's just not physically or technically possible. Speedruns, on the other hand, are never performed on a multiplayer server. Therefore, there is no possible way that any of the plugins that Dream has ever used could ever affect any of his speedruns. It's just not how the game works. It couldn't even happen by accident. By looking at the world folder and F3 screen for Dream's 1.16 speedrun streams, we know that he was using the Fabric mod loader. So the mod that he used to increase drop rates was a Fabric mod. Also notice that on his speedrun, the F3 screen states integrated server. This confirms that he wasn't connected to any external servers at the time. When we look at Dream's manhunts and challenge videos, the information on the F3 screen confirms that he connects to one of two different servers, Paper or Truinity. The important thing to note about these servers is that the Fabric mod loader isn't compatible. This means that the Fabric mod that was used in his speedruns to increase drop rates could not have been the same mod that he was using in his other videos. We can be fairly certain that the mechanism that increased drop rates in Dream's videos is different to what happened in his speedruns, and there is no reason to ever assume that the plugins he used for content creation had anything to do with what happened on his streams. Something else must have happened, something unpredictable, and this is where we come to the developer.
This is also a mod that he personally hired someone to make for him, but he claims to not understand how it was affecting his game, and it was an accident that he used it in his run? That's not remotely believable.
One thing I found fascinating when watching all of the commentary videos covering Dream's confession and reading all of the Reddit and YouTube comments is that I didn't find a single person that ever asked, who is the developer? As someone who cares deeply about actually investigating topics, this seemed to be the most important question of all, and it was literally the first thing I asked Dream when he said he was willing to answer questions. But no one else was even willing to consider the possibility that this person even existed. It's amazing what happens when you genuinely ask questions, and after some convincing, I was able to speak with the developer directly. They were clear, however, that they wished to remain anonymous due to the backlash they may receive for indirectly causing all of this drama. The fact that it's coming from me instead of directly from them should ultimately make it less credible, but it's up to you if you think that I'm a trustworthy source. Through our conversation, I was able to establish the following important details. First of all, the developer is a credible source, and if they were a random person that nobody had ever heard of, I'd be less inclined to believe them, but this is certainly not the case. They confirmed that they had increased the rates of various items and made it clear that Dream never instructed them to do so. This makes sense, as Dream couldn't even use a Fabric mod for this purpose. The developer advised that they increased the rate because their job was to create a mod that improved content creation, and not just for Dream, but his entire team. The assumption was that they also produced content in single player, which would need a mod to increase rates. However, it was quickly realized that they always use multiplayer servers. Therefore, that part of the mod was removed. But of course, not before Dream accidentally used it in his streams. Increased rates wasn't even the main point of the mod. It has many purposes, including faster loading and graphical enhancements, though at this stage it was still only in development. The question now becomes, why wouldn't the developer tell Dream about the changes they had made? Well, there are several reasons for this. The most critical comes down to fear, as Dream never instructed them to increase the rates. This makes it an error on their part, and one that ended up causing a ton of drama. They knew they had made a mistake, and feared losing their job. so the fact that these specific changes had been made was kept from Dream until much later. This isn't a ridiculous idea, as everyone can relate to doing something wrong and then failing to tell anyone that it was actually them that did it. Other factors made the situation even muddier. The report from the Minecraft moderators came out 2 months after the streams, making it impossible to check what mods he had been using. But even still, Dream was always adamantly claiming that not only were no unauthorized mods used, but even the math was wrong. Many people from Dream's camp simply took him at his word. It wasn't until months later, after even Dream's hired astrophysicist acknowledged the game was modified and it was just impossible to ignore the truth, that Dream accepted what had happened. And when he finally acknowledged that his game was modified and spoke to the developer again, the developer admitted what they had done. That being said, attempts were made shortly after the original investigation into Dream's luck had commenced to locate any mods that could have caused the increased luck, but by that stage the mod in question had already been deleted. Dream and the developer went through all of his Minecraft files, but couldn't locate any cause for the changed drop rates. Mind you, at this point the developer was still withholding the fact that they had made those changes in the first place. With a credible third party confirming what Dream was claiming, I knew that the chances of him lying were greatly decreased. If Dream did cheat by accident, all of his behaviors would need to be re-examined through that lens to see if it makes sense. I decided to go all the way back to the beginning to check everything again. When I originally covered the cheating scandal months ago, the debate was still centered around whether or not Dream's game was modified, and with no other explanation, cheating was the only conclusion. But now we have a new explanation, and if we are to judge the situation as fairly as possible, we should forget our previous assumptions and investigate everything with a clean slate.
And speedrunners play these games for thousands of hours. When your luck is 1 in 7.5 trillion and you're an experienced speedrunner, how can you claim to not notice that something's wrong?
I'm sorry, but if you understand a game as good as he does, you understand.
Absolutely. I think he's full of shit. But this is what he's saying, is that
Like, it's so, if he has this mod installed to make these rare items drop way more common, it's so obvious when you're playing and it's working or not.
Yeah.
Like, come on, dude.
yeah.
So obvious.
Well, he's just getting lucky. That's what he said at the end. I got so lucky.
Despite Ethan the expert claiming so confidently that Dream's modified game was obvious, the timeline of events confirms that it was anything but. Dream had a cumulative audience of hundreds of thousands of people, including many of the best Minecraft speedrunners and moderators. But during his stream, no one noticed any foul play or cheating. In fact, for the entire week after his new personal best, no one said anything. Honestly, it was probably sheer luck that someone ended up being crazy enough to study his streams and collate the data, and it wasn't until 7 days later that the speedrunner Minecravenger posted his findings. It's only through mathematics that the absurdity of what happened becomes clear. A few weeks ago, the YouTuber Smallant released a video called "So How Much Easier Are Minecraft Speedruns If You Cheat?", where he increased the drop rates to match Dream's. This isn't an attack on Smallant or anything, it was a really fun and entertaining video, but it's definitely misleading. With modern day strategies using bastions to farm gold, players can barter up to 100 times in a span of 2 minutes. At this rate, the discrepancy becomes immediately apparent. When Dream was speedrunning, players would only trade a handful of times if they were lucky. In 24 hours, he traded less than 300 times, averaging 1 trade every 6 minutes. Nowadays, a player could match that total in 1 or 2 hours. The entire strategy of bartering for pearls was still in its infancy. Version 1.16 had only recently been released, so people weren't as experienced as they are now. The truth of the matter is that Dream's extreme luck wasn't as obvious as you'd think, and it really did require mathematical analysis to uncover the truth. Suggesting that Dream or anyone else should have known while he was playing just isn't realistic. What happened immediately after Dream set a new personal best was very interesting as well. I'm sure you've all heard the story about Dream refusing to provide his mod folder to the moderators and claiming he had deleted it.
We asked Dream for his mods folder specifically so we could check for any modification, but he was unable to provide any evidence since he says he deletes the contents of his mods folder pretty regularly.
While that statement may be technically true, this ends up being a lie by omission. I don't think it was intentional or malicious, but it grossly misrepresents what happened. Immediately after achieving his new record, Dream spoke with a moderator and said this: "What do you need? I can send you any folders you want, and I won't touch anything so you can see the modified dates." From these messages, it was clear that he was willing to provide everything. But all that was requested was his world folder, which he did provide. So if he cheated and offered literally everything they wanted, what would have happened if they requested the mod folder? Would he have said he deleted it so he couldn't provide it? That wouldn't make any sense. If he did cheat and wanted to hide it, the only reasonable choice would be to delete the mod he used and send them the mod folder without it inside. He would never offer everything unless he had a plan for when they did request everything. But this begs the question, if he did have a plan that involved sending them a fake folder, why would he ditch that plan and come up with a story about deleting it? After a lot of thought, I realized that no one who was actually looking to cheat would say they deleted the folder. Instead, they would just send a fake one. It's much easier, simpler, avoids conspiracy theories and unnecessary drama. What's crazier is that he didn't even need to mention he deleted the folder at all. When the moderator asked him if he could provide the mods folder, Dream responded saying it would be pointless because he changes it all the time, which is actually incorrect, because if he had not deleted anything and sent them the entire mod folder, it definitely would have contained the mod that increased the drop rates. But in any case, after his response, the moderator advised that simply a list of mods that were used at the time would suffice. At this point, it wasn't even a requirement to provide the folder. Dream responded saying he didn't know, because he deleted the folder in frustration. It's a small detail, but I think it's important to clarify details that have been falsely represented. Dream did not say he deleted the folder in order to avoid sending it, as it was already clear he didn't need to. The only reason he said he deleted it was because he couldn't remember what was in it. Again, I bring you back to my previous question. If Dream did intentionally cheat, and I want to stress that's always a strong possibility, it would be much simpler to provide a fake list of mods. Saying I don't know doesn't make sense, and it just looks really bad. If you honestly think about it, a cheater would just give a fake answer. Especially someone like Dream, who everyone is claiming lies about everything anyway. Why would he be honest about this? Dream offering everything and then later giving detrimental answers to questions doesn't seem to fit the profile of a cheater looking to lie their way out of a situation. People saw the deletion of his mod folder as proof that he was intentionally hiding something. But if Dream's story is true, it's just as adequately explained by frustration. His rage quit was fairly public, and there are tweets from the day before the moderators even asked for his mod folder confirming that he had made it clear he was quitting speedrunning. Can you honestly say that you've never personally deleted a game out of frustration or destroyed something out of anger, or at least seen it done by someone else? This is extremely typical behavior, and if Dream was under the impression he didn't cheat, getting accused publicly by hundreds of people would be extremely upsetting. If anything, it would be very odd if there weren't a strong reaction. I will definitely address Dream's overall behavior, especially that on social media, but that will be later in the video. For now, I want to keep moving along and correcting a lot of the misinformation that has been circulated, which brings us to the biggest source of conspiracy theories, Dream's Harvard astrophysicist.
He hired a professor from Harvard to prove it. Oh, did he? Can you tell me what professor that was? It's a rhetorical question. I know you can't because he didn't say who it was. That's why it's like an actual useless claim. At least the guy who debunked it puts his actual name on it. He's a verified particle physicist who debunked most of the bad claims in it. You can't make a response like that that hinges on the qualifications of your Harvard PhD statistical astrophysicist grad and not give info on who did it. That's not how that works. I could have said that.
Oh boy, where do we even begin? On the 21st of December, Dream released a report by a quote-unquote expert in response to the report the Minecraft moderators released 10 days earlier. The point of the report was to provide a second opinion on the probability of Dream achieving the drop rates he did. The conclusion of the report gave a probability of 1 in 100 million, but as I stated in my previous video, this is extremely misleading, and doesn't relate to the 1 in 7.5 trillion figure given by the moderators. But this didn't stop Dream from using that discrepancy and proclaiming how wrong the moderators were in his response video. Shortly after release, Dream's expert analysis was ripped to shreds by both Reddit and the Minecraft moderators. I'm not going to cover the math, but to put it bluntly, the general consensus was that the work was subpar. The combination of this supposed expert being anonymous and the fact that they seem to be defending Dream and the seemingly poor quality of work amounted to a perfect storm that led to countless conspiracy theories, most of them centered around the infamous company Photo Excitation. The report states, this article was written by an expert from the online science consulting company Photo Excitation. As with all Photo Excitation activities, the exact identity of the author will not be revealed. A reasonable conclusion that one can draw from this is that Dream commissioned Photo Excitation directly to produce this report. Naturally, the first question that arises is, how did he find them? The report gives a website, and the sleuths on Reddit quickly went to work on their investigation. The conclusion? It's all a big scam. The company isn't even a statistical analysis company. Even worse, the website was still under construction. If this isn't bulletproof evidence of a conspiracy, I don't know what is. Interestingly, Dream denied even using the company or knowing anything about the website, but this was just another lie, at least according to Reddit. I mean, it says the company name right there in the report. Not many people know this, but back when I was younger, I used to be quite the hacker. And as it turns out, I still have my skills. Don't tell Dream, but I managed to gain access to his emails, and they are wild. I'm sure you're only interested in the ones that relate to this astrophysicist though, so let me tell you what really happened. Wanting to clear his name and knowing nothing about math, Dream decided to hire an expert. So he went onto a website, not unlike CollabTree. Websites like this are literally designed for this exact purpose. After filtering for scientists with an expertise in probability and statistics, Dream eventually landed on 2 suitable candidates. He then used their profile to find out where they were currently stationed, and went directly to the institution's website to contact them through there. Which is why when the astrophysicist responded to Dream's initial email, they were surprised it was even known they were a freelancer. Dream briefly explained the situation, and the expert agreed to help. After some more discussion, the expert provided Dream with a few terms, one of them being that Dream post the results no matter the outcome. They also requested that payment be made through their consulting company, Photo Excitation, and that their real name was not to be used, which is the reason that I will also not provide their personal name. The important thing is that Dream didn't use the company or find the expert through its website. It was just something that the expert requested, and I have to be honest, this isn't suspicious at all. In fact, it's standard. Almost every person that both earns a decent amount of money and gets paid for services will set up a company and receive payments through it instead of receiving them directly. The primary reason is because company tax rates are a lot lower than individual tax rates. Even I have a company. It's called Carl Jobst Gaming Proprietary Limited, and all of my payments go to the company. I then draw a wage, which I can increase or decrease depending on my needs. But if you search for a website belonging to Carl Jobst Gaming, you won't find one, let alone one that is still under construction. I guess that makes me a scam too. Everyone was quick to assume the expert wasn't really an expert, or that they were bribed, because the paper was very poorly written and it was written anonymously. But let me offer you a different perspective. The original moderator report on Dream's cheating was created by a team of expert Minecraft speedrunners over a span of 2 months. Not only were they some of the most knowledgeable people on the planet in regards to Minecraft, but they were also experts in statistics. Their final report was extremely well done and was the culmination of hundreds and hundreds of total hours spent investigating the situation. Let's compare that to the report drafted by Dream's astrophysicist. It was created by one person, who knows nothing about Minecraft, nothing about speedrunning, over a span of several days. There was never any chance it would even come close to matching the original report in terms of scope and precision. The response abstract states, Dream commissioned this independent analysis to get a second expert opinion, though he did not directly influence it. This is a lie, and it's shocking that it was even included. Dream certainly did directly influence the report in his favor. The expert gave a final increased probability of 1 in 100 million, and one of the reasons was a more accurate estimate of the number of potentially investigated random aspects. In the section relating to these random events, the report states, the MST report proposes that there are about 10 areas where random numbers affect the outcome at a level comparable to ender pearls and blaze rods. Dream, in coordination with other speedrunners, has identified a list of nearly 40 cases where random numbers affect the outcome comparably to blaze rods. If I use the 37 types of random events identified and are allowed to choose any 2 to combine, that leads to a p-hacking correction of 1000, instead of the 90 used in the MST report. 37. Now that number sounds familiar.
So I decided to come up with a list myself of all the possible targets that a cheater would try and cheat in speedrunning that have similar importance to blaze rods. I was able to come up with a detailed list of 37 different RNG targets that I believed were very comparable to blaze rods.
Basically, Dream was coming up with his own numbers and feeding them directly to his expert, who would use them unquestionably. Despite what the abstract claimed, this was not an independent report, and it was obvious. The fact that Dream helped isn't even a bad thing in principle. The real problem is the fact that it was advertised as independent with no input from Dream, which was just a lie. The anonymity of the author, the simple mathematical errors, and the clear bias were all huge red flags, and it was reasonable for people to ask questions and cast doubt. But I don't think it was a scam or a conspiracy. I think it was just a rushed report by a person who has no idea what they are talking about. Several weeks later, the expert would draft a follow-up, apologizing for some of the more egregious errors and essentially confirming that the evidence still heavily supported the conclusion that Dream cheated.
Dream's apology begs us all to move on from the drama. And the reality is that we have. It's been 6 months. So why is he in his bathtub at 4 a.m. bringing it up again? It's because earlier in the day, moderators rejected yet another run of his for cheating, his 1.15 world record speedrun. Gotta say, it's some really interesting timing for him to suddenly become apologetic about the situation.
On the 29th of May, the day before Dream released his Pastebin confession, his speedrun performed on the 1.15 version of Minecraft was deleted from the rankings by the speedrun moderators. The reason provided was that the run has some questionable aspects and was performed by a known cheater. Dream's 1.15 run was performed on the 11th of June 2020. It was a time of 22 minutes and 3 seconds, and when achieved, was the fastest anyone had beaten Minecraft ever, making it a new world record. If you scroll down the ranks in the 1.9 to 1.15 category, you'll notice that almost every player uses the 1.14 version. Nowadays we see some 1.15 runs sprinkled in thanks to relatively new strategies, but certainly up until recently this category was exclusively run on the 1.14 version. This is because 1.14 revamped the villager trading system and gave players a more efficient way of gathering ender pearls. So instead of hunting for endermen, as players had done since the dawn of time, the entire strategy switched to villager trading. When 1.15 was released, they fixed some bugs in relation to the trading system, which effectively nerfed it, so players ended up sticking with 1.14. Dream, however, decided to do something novel. In normal circumstances, hunting endermen for pearls is slower, but there is one tool that might even the playing field, maybe even provide an advantage, and that is the enchantment called looting. If you kill an enemy with a weapon that has the looting enchantment, the amount of loot that drops will increase depending on the level of the enchantment. For example, if you use a sword with looting 3, which is the maximum level, it will increase the potential amount of drops by 3. So an enderman, which can only drop 1 pearl under normal conditions, will now have a chance to drop up to 4. Looting is also amazing when killing blazes, as you can get 6 or more blaze rods in a single cycle. The problem with looting is that attaining an enchanted book is rare. The only reasonable way to get one is to find it in a desert temple. The odds of finding a level 2 or higher looting book in each temple is only 1.7%, or 1 in 58. So not only do you need to find a seed that has a desert temple near spawn, but it needs to contain an enchanted book of looting. In other words, you need to be very, dare I say it, lucky. But this isn't the type of luck that could be manipulated. The contents of chests is decided based on the seed, so you wouldn't be able to just increase the odds. And honestly, the luck needed isn't that unbelievable. On any given day, you'd expect to find a book at least several times. It's definitely a weird choice of strategy though, and to this day, no one has been able to match Dream's time using the same one. What is certainly the most suspicious part of Dream's 1.15 run is the way he finds the stronghold. In order to locate it, you need to throw Eyes of Ender, which will always point in the direction to the nearest stronghold. Throwing a single eye will tell you the direction, but it won't tell you how far. So in order to know the distance, runners will throw one eye, move to the side, and then throw another. This allows them to use triangulation to calculate how far away the stronghold is. Dream doesn't really do this. He throws one eye after leaving the Nether in order to know which direction to travel, then after running a large distance and getting into the stronghold ring, he throws one more. After traveling some distance, he digs down and essentially guesses where the stronghold might be. He does end up missing, but after hearing some water and digging into a cave, he stumbles into the stronghold very close to the portal room. The entire sequence is a bit crazy and is not something that we see in top-level play today. But does that mean the run is fake? Not really. The run seems a lot more suspicious at first glance, and when I first viewed it back in January, Dream's triangulation immediately stood out to me. But when I spoke with experts and heard Dream's reasoning, it started to become a lot more plausible, especially given that triangulation strategies back then were extremely primitive. So even though it's incredibly YOLO by today's standards, it was much less so back then. The same applies for this strategy of farming enchanted books. It seems crazy at first, but those who have spent time actually playing that style say it's not that bad. Despite claims on YouTube and Reddit, there is no evidence to suggest the run was faked, and the moderators certainly did not remove the run because Dream cheated. Even the moderators themselves were asking people to stop saying that they had proof his 1.15 run was cheated. The run was removed simply because he cheated in his 1.16 run, and the moderators finally did something that should have been done half a year ago. People are also claiming that his new confession is a reaction to his 1.15 run being removed, and that it's simply damage control. The truth is that Dream had already been telling people about what happened over a month ago. He just wasn't making it public. Back in April, Dream conducted an interview with YouTube legend and co-founder of Smosh, Anthony Padilla. Off camera, Dream told Anthony the entire story, about the developer updating his mod without his knowledge, and that he accidentally used it in his speedrun. I spoke with Anthony directly and confirmed that it was true. Anthony certainly wasn't the only person that he told either, and Dream's story in his paste bin wasn't just made up in reaction to his 1.15 run being removed, as he had already been telling people months earlier. Now, should Dream have confessed earlier? Yes. And I think we've covered most of the technical details, so it's finally time to look at Dream's behavior.
Weirdly though, I think Dream is even more of an asshole than I thought he was before. The amount of quotes out of context to present a narrative that just isn't supported by the original context. Unsourced quotes, anonymous quotes that are made anonymous for completely no reason. Doing things that seem to only have the goal to make him look good, presenting other things only in a way to make the other mods look bad. This video is terrible. The question so on my mind is, does Dream know what he's doing? Sometimes people just present things in the way that seems natural to them and just ends up being super favorable. I'm not certain he cheated anymore, but I'm still pretty certain he's a complete asshole. If he is innocent, prior to this video, he made an amazing job at presenting himself as the most guilty person on the planet.
On the 22nd of December, Dream released a response video to the report released by the Minecraft moderators. The video definitely served its purpose and caused many of Dream's fans and even neutral parties to start doubting the claims made by the moderators. The video cast a shadow over the math presented, and the argument hinged on the report released by Dream's astrophysicist. It also attacked the moderators and implied they were unprofessional and didn't know what they were doing. Unfortunately, the response video was also filled with lies, and it wouldn't be fair for me to address misinformation spread by Dream's detractors without also tackling the oceans of misinformation that he himself was responsible for. Whether or not Dream is generally truthful with what he says makes a big difference in whether or not we should take him at his word, so we will go through most of the main points and determine what was true and what wasn't.
Probability. Probability is the measurement of how likely something is to happen. Recently, one of my speedruns that I did on Twitch has been analyzed by the speedrun.com volunteer mod team and deemed as improbable to a degree that is nearly impossible.
We are 15 seconds into the video, and there is already a massive lie. The investigation by the Minecraft moderation team was not about one of his speedruns. It was about a period covering 24 hours over a span of an entire week. Saying that he was doubted due to luck in a 20-minute speedrun is incredibly disingenuous, and totally deflects from the actual problem.
3. I did not delete any evidence, and I was doing everything I was asked to by the mods, and I actually have one of the mods on later to come and confirm that.
Dream certainly did delete evidence, and saying that he didn't is another lie. It's true that when he initially set a new record, he offered everything to the moderators, but when people started to realize how unlikely his luck was, he deleted his speedrunning mods folder. It doesn't matter if the deletion of evidence was intentional or not, evidence was deleted, and saying that it wasn't is wrong.
And 4, not all of my 1.16 live streams were used for the data. Only the 6 luckiest ones were. I had 5 other streams before those streams I did on 1.16, but they had below average luck and were not included in their analysis. I had the expert include these streams in a much smaller, separate analysis, which concluded that with these 11 streams included, the data shows, quote, no statistically significant evidence that Dream was modifying the probabilities.
This is really misleading for multiple reasons. Dream's lucky streams took place over 6 days between the 4th and 9th of October. The 5 streams that Dream decided to include took place between the 1st and 10th of July. That is a full 3 months earlier. However, you wouldn't think that based on the way he casually stated that they were before his 6 luckiest streams. Dream's argument would be akin to an Olympic athlete testing positive for steroids and then trying to use the fact that they tested negative in the previous Olympics as some kind of defense. Whether intentional or not, Dream mischaracterizes everything in the worst possible way. The 6 streams weren't chosen because they were the luckiest. They were chosen because they were the only reasonable streams to include. They were his 6 most recent, and the only other streams to consider were months earlier. It's important to highlight just how disingenuous he was in this video, because it ultimately ended up hurting his credibility severely in the long run.
A professor with a PhD that graduated from Harvard that's actually a practicing astrophysicist that is an expert in statistics and astrostatistics. After reaching out to this expert, he insisted that if he was going to do this analysis, that I must agree to release his findings regardless of if they made me look good or they made me look bad. Knowing that I'm innocent, I agreed.
This is real. Dream's Harvard astrophysicist does exist.
First of all, the math was off by at least 7.4998 trillion. And the original number was 7.5 trillion. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a huge number. So it's also a huge number to be off by.
This is another mischaracterization of what Dream's report was stating, though it's likely unintentional. The math performed by the moderators wasn't wrong. The reason the expert's report gave such a higher probability is because they used different data that was spoon-fed to them by Dream himself, like increasing the amount of potential random targets to investigate and adding the 5 streams from months earlier. The expert also increased the sample size of potential live streams one could investigate to find comparable luck, but they did so with no expertise or knowledge of how many Minecraft speedrunning streams there were, and made inferences based on the current Minecraft leaderboards. Essentially, the argument wasn't really about math more than it was about what data should be included in the calculations. The problem is that the data was either provided by Dream himself or guessed by the expert with no expertise in Minecraft speedrunning. The video then spends a large amount of time explaining some mathematical concepts that don't really relate to the issue at hand, and I don't want to spend so much time going over the math, so we'll skip most of it. Obviously, all of the math that Dream tries to use to debunk the original report is either wrong or misleading, and we already know that the game was modified, so it's a futile argument. But I still give Dream the benefit of the doubt that this wasn't malicious and it just came down to a fundamental ignorance of math.
Another thing that the mods got wrong were a few of the bias corrections. The mods claimed that they biased everything in my favor and that the number they came up with was the lowest possible probability in my favor. One thing that they mentioned in their investigation is that they came up with the number 10 for the number of potential targets for a cheater to change. They also said that this was a generous exaggeration as they could only think of a few. This confused me, so I asked them for a list. When I asked for the list of the 10 that they were referring to, they were unable to provide one and they inferred that it was arbitrarily chosen.
The moderators did provide a list, and the list was even shown in the screenshot Dream provided. The list comprised of pearls, rods, obsidian, eye breaks, and dragon perches. The figure of 10 was used in order to bias more in Dream's favor in case there was something they missed. It seems really strange to me for Dream to say he wasn't provided a list and at the same time show a screenshot of the list he was provided, and I honestly don't know what to make of it.
Another example of this is that they claimed that the formula they used would find the lowest possible odds in my favor, but the expert tested their formula on their own example of coin flips and found that their lower bound, or what they claimed to be the lowest possible odds in my favor, were actually twice as high as the actual odds of a coin flip stream, meaning the formula they used was extremely flawed against me.
This was actually a mistake by the expert, which they later apologized for.
In Geosquare's video, he says this.
We asked Dream for his mods folder specifically so we could check for any modification, but he was unable to provide any evidence since he says he deletes the contents of his mods folder pretty regularly.
That obviously makes me seem very suspicious, except for the fact that I didn't ever say that. I provided the mods with every file they ever asked for, and I never said that I regularly delete the contents of my mod folder. Actually, the verification team was disorganized and never even asked me anything involving my mod folder until 10 days after the investigation started.
While what Dream said here was generally true, and I think the misinformation provided by Geosquare needed to be addressed and corrected, this section still contains a couple of verifiable lies. He states that he provided the mod team with every file they ever asked for, which again is not true, as he did not provide the mods folder when they asked. He states that the mod team was disorganized and didn't ask for the mod folder until 10 days after the investigation, but this also isn't true. Minecravenger posted his findings on the 16th of October. Within 24 hours, the investigation began, and Dream was contacted for his mod folder on the 18th, the very next day.
But now that that's out of the way, in the video, they used the logs that I mentioned before to show that I had Fabric API loaded, but they didn't mention that it showed that nothing else was loaded. They also alluded to the fact that I'm suspicious because I used Fabric, a mod loader. But Fabric is used by more than half of all of the top runners on the leaderboard. And actually, I would have much preferred using Optifine, where you can't use mods. And I did, until they banned Optifine from speedruns and told people to use Fabric instead. So I switched to Fabric because I had to, and then I was called suspicious because of it.
Addressing the second point first, Geosquare did say that using the Fabric mod loader made things more suspicious. However, I couldn't find any reason or explanation as to why that would be. Dream was correct in saying that most people use the Fabric mod loader. When I learned Minecraft speedrunning, one of the very first things they told me to do was install Fabric and place multiple mods into my Minecraft mods folder. This is standard practice. The reference to Fabric API is a different story though. The Fabric mod loader is a Minecraft client that you install separately and use to boot up Minecraft. It reads your Minecraft mods folder in order to load the mods inside. Fabric API is something else. It's a mod that you place directly into your mods folder, and it enables some of the other mods to load properly. Generally, it's used simply to enable other mods to work. Dream states that the log showed no other mods loaded, but realistically, there is no reason for Fabric API to be in the mods folder to begin with unless another mod was loaded. Dream himself even acknowledged this in a conversation with one of the moderators. He wasn't sure if he had used Fabric API, but after finding out that he did, he realized that he had probably been using both being Fabric API and the mod he uses for recording, which requires Fabric API to load. This is because he drags both of them together in and out of his mods folder at the same time. So it's interesting that Dream's recording mod required Fabric API and that he admitted in private that he probably was using his recording mod, but in the response video, he adamantly claims that no other mods were used. He doesn't even mention the mod that was the sole reason for using Fabric API in the first place. In his paste bin, Dream mentions that he was 99% sure he didn't have the mod on, but that's a different story than what his earlier messages suggest.
The official owners and admins of speedrun.com, which run the leaderboard, made a statement that the video was, quote, lacking in the level of objectivity we hope to see around communications by the game moderation team to the community.
For some reason, Dream feels the need to take a valid point and warp it into something that is deceitful. This claim confused everyone because no one could find the statement made by the Speedrun.com owners and admins. The truth is that they never made a statement. What Dream is referring to is a private DM that he received from one of the Speedrun.com admins explaining the results of their investigation into whether or not the moderator's video was harassment or broke Speedrun.com terms. The quote about lacking objectivity was specifically directed at one section of the video, which was hypothesizing about why Dream may have cheated. If you've seen the video, it's the section where they quoted one of my videos. I agree that this section didn't need to be in the video, but I don't think it was particularly egregious either. Nonetheless, the Speedrun.com admin did pass on feedback to the moderators, letting them know to remain more objective with their presentations in the future. So it wasn't a statement from the owners and admins, it was a direct message from a single admin. And it wasn't about the entire video, it was just about a particular section.
First of all, the Speedrun.com Minecraft Bedrock Edition team, which is a similar team to the one who worked on this, but for Bedrock Edition, completely banned me from ever submitting an official run, well before this happened, without giving a single reason why, other than that, they don't like me. And I have never even played Minecraft Bedrock Edition or done a single speedrun on that game. But I'm still banned, and I have yet to be told why.
Of all of the lies in the response video, this is probably the worst, and it's definitely the most disappointing for me. Dream claims that he was banned before everything happened, but he was actually banned immediately following the Java Minecraft moderator's report was released. On the same day, in fact. He claims that they didn't provide a single reason, other than they didn't like him. But not only did they give a reason, it's explicitly stated in their community guidelines that anyone caught cheating in any version of Minecraft will be banned. When they added Dream to the banned players topic, the moderator made a post stating that cheating in Java doesn't make you popular with the Bedrock crowd. With that being said, as with every other case, Dream has some merit to what he is saying. He was banned by the Bedrock moderators months earlier, but it was only from the Discord server. And while there is plenty of evidence confirming that the Bedrock moderators didn't like Dream and his fans, it has nothing to do with his ban from the Speedrun.com leaderboards. Normally I would chalk this conflation up to confusion, but Dream was told why he was banned almost a week before the video was released. The Bedrock team has nothing at all to do with the Java team, so there really wasn't any point in including them. Given their history of beef, it leads me to believe this might have been an intentional attack on the Bedrock team. It's impossible to absolutely confirm intent, and I'm not suggesting it's certainly the case, but that's definitely the way it looks.
One of the mods, who asked me not to name them, frequently said things that led to me having doubts about the investigation. Quote, everyone was still discussing whether the decision was right 10 minutes before the video was published. And also, quote, they were just yelling at each other to finish faster. That same mod told me after the results were released, quote, for the record, I don't believe at all that you cheated, and also, quote, I'm probably going to be quitting the mod team because of this.
This was a particularly controversial section of the video, because the quotes from the moderator were again anonymous, so no one could verify if they were real. The moderation team tried their best to confirm that someone actually had said those things, but they couldn't do it. This left many of them doubting the quotes entirely. However, I can say that I've verified the screenshots, and they really did happen. However, as is the case with everything else, there is a bit more to the story. The moderator certainly made those statements to Dream, but before Dream released his video, that same moderator implored that Dream did not release them, as they were made in frustration and probably weren't true. So again, on one hand, Dream was being fed doubt about the investigation, and that's a legitimate concern, but to provide those quotes without giving the full context is extremely misleading.
I have an amazing community and an amazing group of fans, and I don't need to officially speedrun. I do it because I like it and it's fun. I get less viewers on my record videos than I do on my normal videos, and I get less views on my speedrun Twitch streams than my normal Twitch streams. I also didn't even upload a single one of the speedruns that were investigated onto any of my channels, not even highlights or anything. So again, to me, I care much more about my character than a leaderboard or any kind of benefit I could get from speedrunning.
I've seen a lot of people try to claim that Dream's speedruns were somehow integral to his image, or that getting a world record would boost the value of his brand. This really isn't the case, and what Dream is saying here is true. Ultimately, speedrunning would cost him money, even if he did get a new world record. One of the biggest realizations that I've made in the past couple of years is that content creation is far more profitable than speedrunning. So much so that I've basically stopped seriously speedrunning entirely. And from what I see, most content creators tend to either stop or wind down their speedruns significantly. This may not be true for everyone, but I can say with a reasonably high level of certainty that for the vast majority of people, when you start making a lot of money on YouTube, being the best speedrunner in the world becomes far less important. And when you are making as much money as Dream, I would confidently make the assumption that he could really care less about being the best speedrunner.
One of the last things that I want to mention is a quote from one of the Minecraft developers. Quote, "Just going off of chances is quite dumb." Also, quote, "A lot of speedrunning Minecraft is RNG, or at least speedrunning until you get good RNG." Then he went on to say, quote, "They really should consider a better process, like you can force speedrunners to stream with some anti-cheat mod or something."
Again, Dream provides quotes from anonymous sources, which just fueled speculation about their legitimacy. But I have read through the conversation and can confirm that it really did happen. What stood out to me when reading a lot of the private conversations is just how much doubt Dream was fed by various sources. The conversation with the Mojang developer was especially interesting as they gave Dream multiple reasons to not trust the moderator's report. They did say that just going off of chances was dumb, and that speedrunning was about trying until you get good RNG. But they also threw out some incorrect concepts. For example, they used the gambler's fallacy, stating that because some of the drops weren't checked, that might affect the odds. They also talked about success bias, and stated the only reason people are saying it's only you is because we only checked you. Why I find this conversation so fascinating is because I can see these concepts being seeded into Dream's mind, which he would then go on to use in various ways. Over a month before the moderator's report was released, Dream wrote a document called My Perspective, which was in response to the initial accusations. Here we can see those same fallacies expanded on and used in his defense. Most of the defenses Dream used to combat the impossible probability of what happened didn't even come from him. He had multiple people in his ear feeding him various ideas. For me, the biggest takeaway from Dream's response video is how he misrepresents reality to his favor. Dream will take something that is true and twist it around in an attempt to make it even more beneficial to his cause. He will turn a single admin's message into a statement from the owners and admins. A single moderator messaging him becomes multiple moderators messaging him. Providing what the moderators initially asked for becomes providing everything the moderators ever asked for. Being banned from the Bedrock Discord server months earlier becomes being banned from the Bedrock leaderboard months earlier. While Dream does have a habit of taking creative license with the truth, I've never caught him out in a complete lie. He will definitely bend the truth a lot, but there is always some substance to what he says. This ends up hurting him severely and destroys his trustworthiness. I don't think he ever needed to disingenuously expand on any of the facts. From all of my research, I've seen legitimate concerns that needed to be addressed, but the way Dream addressed them was very harmful and showed a clear disregard for not only the accuracy of what he was saying, but the effects that they will have on the people around him. Dream's habit of bending the truth wasn't just isolated to his response video. It was also highlighted on his Twitter feed. I covered a couple of tweets in my previous video, so I won't spend too much time on this, but his tweets are definitely important and ultimately affect how trustworthy his statements end up being. On October 17th, Dream becomes aware of the discussion surrounding his Pearl trades and gives his first public reaction. Obviously, I can analyze this tweet and point out its flaws, like the fact that it doesn't matter if it was a world record or if it was streamed, but honestly, I can't really fault Dream for his response. I've personally been accused of cheating in the past, and I certainly did not react in a mature way either. It's extremely infuriating and upsetting. Dream is in an incredibly difficult situation here, and I think what people fail to realize is that learning how to manage the responsibility of having a large fan base takes time. Dream's tweets are pretty typical for people who are both young and frustrated. If you read the tweets, YouTube comments, and Reddit comments of other people attacking Dream, they are generally far, far worse. The only difference is that Dream has influence over a large audience, so he needs to be more careful with what he says. A lot of people want me to blast Dream over his immature tweets, but what I care most about is whether or not growth occurs and he learns from his mistakes. Gaining millions of subscribers doesn't magically make you a mature person, and I personally don't expect it to. Dream's initial tweets in response to the accusations and moderator report were extremely dangerous and harmful. However, all I've seen from Dream since then is him apologizing and taking responsibility for them. If you track Dream's behavior over his Twitter feed, you will see a clear trend of less aggression and more introspection. He continuously apologizes for his previous actions, and as far as I can tell, makes plenty of effort to restrain his fanbase from attacking others. That being said, what didn't seem to shift at all between his initial reactions and his response video was his willingness to stretch the truth. Therefore, I find that behavior still relevant to this video. In a tweet from November the 28th, Dream states, "My 13th place run that I did almost 2 months ago on livestream has been under investigation for almost 2 months, due to the fact that I got too lucky on Pearl trades. The math has already essentially been debunked based on sample bias and other factors." So let's break down this tweet, and it will highlight the main issue that I see with the way Dream communicates. He states it was a 13th place run, which is true at the time of the tweet, but it was a 5th place time when achieved. He highlights that it was 2 months ago, as if that's important, but I don't really see how it is. Many of the speedruns that are uncovered for cheating were exposed years later. He points out it was streamed, however, this is not a defense against cheating, as multiple prominent speedrunners have been caught cheating purely due to the fact that they were streaming. He puts under investigation in quotes to diminish the effort the moderators were putting in confirming the math. He describes the issue as getting too lucky, which disingenuously characterizes the situation. And he claims that the math has been debunked, which was obviously not true. My problem with the way Dream communicated is his inaccuracy. He misrepresents things to make them seem more trivial, and he brings up issues that aren't relevant. But unlike other people, I don't hate Dream for it or see it as something that speaks to his character. As I said in my previous video, people have the right to defend themselves. You can't attack people for trying to clear their name. You can't blame people for trying to paint the best picture of themselves. You can't hold it against people if they don't bend over and accept every charge that is laid against them. The reason for this is because you won't always know if someone is actually guilty or innocent, and if you attack people for merely defending themselves, you are going to eventually attack innocent people. Even if a conclusion seems obvious, I still live by this principle and never expect someone to confess. I'm definitely not suggesting that if you're guilty you shouldn't confess though, I'm just saying that as a third party, you shouldn't force people to. If a defendant has a history of being inaccurate with how they describe things, it makes it almost impossible to take what they say seriously. Dream's new story could contain all of the same kind of inconsistencies that are littered throughout his response video and tweets. This needs to be considered when deciding whether or not to believe him now.
You cheated in Minecraft, right? Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. The problem was the investigations, all these different people, the huge fan bases defending you. It's not some little thing. Like, these people that outed you, like the moderators and stuff and the other YouTubers that investigated this, they experienced fucking death threats from your fans. They experienced harassment on levels many have yet to experience. I know. I've experienced fucking hate mobs before. I know what that's like. And sometimes it can be absolute hell. But then you found out months ago that you did cheat, right? According to your story. And you didn't say anything. You were quiet for months. And then you were like, oh, it's eating at me. I gotta come clean on everything. So then you write the post and it's blah, 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 blah. And you're explaining every little detail. No one fucking cares, all right? When you fuck up like this, you got to take a fucking L. And you keep like showing a little bit of L and then you cover it up, but I'm a good person and blah, 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 blah. No, motherfucker. The internet wants to see you suffer for this shit. They want to see you take a fucking L. They want to punish you for your fucking crimes. And I know I said that as a joke, but like seriously, they want to see you fucking punished for this dumb shit. And then we can move on.
Before I give you my final thoughts and let you know where I currently stand, I want you to know that whatever you decide to believe is completely fine. Whether you think Dream intentionally cheated or not is justifiable, and the only fact that we know for sure is that his game was modified. How it was done and why it was done is something that I ultimately couldn't 100% verify. Dream's developer backs up his story, but I couldn't find any concrete evidence to back up the timeline of events. The mod that was used apparently no longer exists, and the developer doesn't keep track of version history, which is suspicious but not conclusive. I asked for the direct messages or any proof of the conversations Dream and the developer had, both when checking Dream's files and when the developer came clean, but nothing could be provided. I couldn't find anything that directly contradicts Dream's story, but there wasn't anything that directly confirms it either. If this new story is made up, Dream did a fantastic job at making sure all of the pieces fit nicely. The methodology I used in coming to my own conclusion was a combination of examining the evidence and comparing the two different scenarios to see which is more likely. I want to start with the hypothesis that Dream intentionally cheated, because I don't think people truly grasp the full scope of what that implies. If Dream did cheat on purpose, it means that for the entire 24 hours of streams, he was faking his reactions.
Dude, that would have been world record. That could have been world record. I had insane luck.
It means that he knew the math was correct, but still paid thousands of dollars to hire an astrophysicist who ultimately said he probably cheated anyway. It means that he did interviews and flawlessly lied in a way that was undetectable and indistinguishable from his normal style of conversation, and was so proficient that he managed to even change the opinion of Dark Viper AU just by how genuine and easily he answered questions. It means that he reached out to the Speedrun.com admin team and the Mojang developer asking for help, even though he knew he modded his game. It means that he reached out to people like Keemstar asking for help, who ultimately got him in touch with me in order to objectively investigate the situation, knowing full well that we'd only conclude he was guilty. It means he spent who knows how many hours researching and writing a 10-page report about probabilities, even though he knew the probabilities were correct. It means that he has bribed or coerced at least one other credible person to lie on his behalf, and to lie to me of all people. It means that he also lied to his close friends and incredibly popular personalities behind closed doors for seemingly no reason. It means that even though he is guilty, he still gave me access to his emails, his messages, and spent hours upon hours answering questions, knowing full well that if I still thought he was intentionally cheating, I would have no hesitation in saying it. It means that instead of simply letting the issue go, he decided to create another elaborate fake story that is both so intricate and yet so sturdy, I can only applaud it. It means that despite knowing the Minecraft moderators were right, he still attacked them on Twitter, causing his fans to harass them. This person would need to be so psychopathic, so manipulative, so insane that I've never seen it before. People have compared Dream to Billy Mitchell, but there are key differences. Billy Mitchell is weird, and has always appeared weird. Dream, on the other hand, appears normal. Billy Mitchell never conducts interviews and only speaks with sycophants. When was the last time you saw Billy Mitchell in a debate? Dream will speak or debate with anyone, no matter how hostile. Everything Mitchell says is scripted, and he repeats the same stories and lines over and over again. Dream speaks naturally and spontaneously. But probably the most important difference is that Billy Mitchell never changes his story, never backpedals, never apologizes, and attacks everyone who disagrees. Dream is the opposite. He did remove his response video, he backpedaled his story, he took responsibility and eventually apologized. You might think it's just damage control, but in my opinion, someone that is crazy enough to do everything that I just said a minute ago would never back down. Dream does not fit the profile of someone so stupidly evil that he would cheat and then go to the lengths he did to hide it, especially when his career doesn't even depend on it, which again is the difference between Dream and a conman like Billy Mitchell. I know that many people dislike Dream, but the truth is that his actions are far more easily and logically explained if he really didn't think he cheated. reaching out to people, hiring an expert, showing signs of frustration and anger, all flow naturally from someone who perceives he is innocent trying to defend himself. I'd be less inclined to believe Dream's story if not for third-party testimony and access to his message history confirming he was willing to provide everything after his record. In my subjective analysis of his private emails and messages, he didn't come across as someone who was scheming or lying. It's not proof of anything, but it's just the impression I got. Other very experienced Minecraft players have testified how easy it would be to unknowingly use mods when you always use different ones. In my investigation, I reached out to AntVenom, one of the most experienced Minecrafters on the planet, and he had this to say.
Thank you, Carl. As someone who's been a part of the Minecraft community for well over 10 years, and as someone for the longest time who also only ever used one instance of Minecraft, it would have been very easy for me to lose track of what mods I was using at any given time, especially when I was cycling mods in and out of my mods folder all of the time. Dream is someone who bought Minecraft before July of 2013, which is right around the time when the launcher was implemented that allowed for you to have multiple instances of Minecraft. Dream has claimed to only ever use the vanilla launcher, so he wouldn't have been using a launcher that allowed for multiple installations of Minecraft prior to that time. So it stands to reason that he would have been used to it. And if Dream was cycling mods in and out of his mods folder all of the time for various projects, I can personally see how he would have lost track of his mods, and in that regard, I do honestly believe him.
And mind you, AntVenom is not a Dream stan, and like me, also made a video calling out Dream for cheating back in December. With all of that said, does that mean I believe Dream's story? No, at least not entirely. And this is why I focused so much on his response video. Based on his past behavior of bending the truth, I couldn't in good conscience believe everything at face value. But as I also said earlier, I've never caught him saying something that was completely fabricated either. Therefore, in conjunction with all of the evidence I've seen, I believe the essence of what Dream was claiming in his paste bin was probably true. In my opinion, it is definitely more likely that he really didn't know his drop rates and barter rates were modified. As for the more specific technical details of how it all happened, that's where things become a lot more messy. Ultimately though, the most important question for me will always be, was it intentional? And I do believe that it probably wasn't. However, Dream is still 100% responsible for what happened. At best, he was negligent, stubborn, deceptive, and belligerent. It is a speedrunner's responsibility to ensure that no unapproved mods are used. Dream has criticized the behavior of the Minecraft moderators multiple times, but you can't put someone else in a very uncomfortable position and then complain about how they responded to it. It's my opinion that given the terrible circumstance they were put in, the moderation team did a fantastic job and should be commended, not criticized. Dream is solely responsible for thousands of his fans going after anyone who dared suggest that he cheated. Intentional or not, Dream is the cause of everything that transpired. But as crazy as this sounds, and I know a lot of people will hate me for saying this, Dream isn't a terrible person. It's just that his flaws become so magnified due to the size of his audience. If you watch many of the videos from the commentary community that covered this situation, they did the exact same thing, but arguably worse. In their quest to hate on Dream, they became liars and manipulators themselves, even if they didn't realize it. They study a situation for 30 minutes and then proceed to act like they're an expert, even though they get half of the things they say wrong. I want to show you the perfect example of what I'm talking about. On June 1st, a video was uploaded titled, "Why Dream Cheated His Speedrun on Purpose." And just listen to what the video says.
But that wasn't the end. 3 months later, Dream would break another speedrun world record, this time for version 1.15. He beat the game in 22 minutes. The video hit 25 million views, and everyone loved it. Except for the speedrunning committee. Remember that one group of people I talked about? Well, as it turns out, they didn't like Dream's speedrun. Why? Along with many other people, they thought it was suspicious, because his odds of getting certain drops were literally impossible. And by impossible, I mean 1 in 7.5 trillion.
The creator of the video didn't even know what speedrun caused the entire issue or when it was, and yet they used this wrong information as the basis for a video that will get hundreds of thousands of views. Dream has to deal with this misinformation on a daily basis, and if I'm entirely truthful, I'm almost at the point where I'd even commend him on how he responds to it. As a content creator myself, I've been exposed to far less, and I know how it affects you. I've lost the plot and attacked people over a mere YouTube comment, let alone having hundreds of videos with millions of views sharing verifiably false information. It's not just influencers either. If you read YouTube and Reddit comments, it's even worse. In one breath, people will complain that Dream is a liar, and then in the next, spout made-up assumptions that couldn't be further from the truth. It seems like everyone is lying everywhere, and I sincerely hope people begin to realize it sooner rather than later. Does that mean that people shouldn't make videos or talk about these situations? No. People can still talk about whatever they like, but you, as a viewer, should never take it seriously. And never ever assume that the person you are watching has any idea what they are talking about. Unless, of course, that person is me. Fortunately, in the case of Dream, it does seem like he genuinely wants to learn from his mistakes and become a better person. After his Payspin, he wrote a much more sincere apology to the speedrunning community, which he didn't really publicize, so I will link it in the description. On one hand, I do hope people stop it with the needless hate and toxicity, but of course, I also hope that Dream can remain sincere and prove that he can see the lessons taught by his errors. In a perfect world, the relationship between the speedrunning community and Dream will eventually be renewed. I trust that with time and reflection, both parties will allow that to happen. A big thank you to Dream, the Minecraft moderators, and everyone else that I interviewed. This video took a lot of effort and research, so please do me a favor by subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, you legends. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.